There's only one boss in this place, and that's me. The HNIC.
Hey everybody, it's Brett with Indie Comics Dispatch. Joining me today is Jason Pharo. Am I saying that right?
You are. Yep. It's Pharo. Yep.
And like, what if that's not how you say it?
No, that's how you say it. Yep. Just like it's actually Greek, but it's pronounced like you would, Egypt Pharaoh.
Right. So. Very good. Very good. Well, joining me today is Jason Pharo, Pharo Creative Studios and creator and writer of The Convictor. Welcome.
Thanks, man. Thanks for having me. I'm glad to be here. I was excited about this.
Yeah, me too, because we've done one print interview. Actually, people may not know. If you don't go to indiecomicsdispatch.com, shame on you. But Jason actually has a print interview up there. And whenever I look this way for Jason and for other people out there, that's when I'm just checking Instagram comments. So don't think I'm ignoring anybody. So this is technically our second interview, and so we're going to kind of be expanding on that first interview some. But this is our first live interview together. So for folks who may not have seen your other interview, tell us about yourself and how you became an indie comic book creator.
Well, okay. Let's see. I've been 48, so I've been drawing a long time, about 40 years. Just like most of us as little kids do, drawing this, drawing that. I was very, superheroes, gravitate towards superheroes, clearly. Now, in my age bracket, I caught all the reruns of the old 1960s Spider-Man cartoon. That was really sparked my interest in superheroes, and then became Super Friends and all that great stuff. I was drawing then, and I drew pretty much all through my teens. And then when I got about 17, 18, I was still drawing. I was drawing regularly. I actually had a little comic strip up in the high school that I would put up, and folks would read it in the art room every week. Convictor. It was Convictor. And what ended up happening was, life kind of took over. I was pretty much married and had a kid relatively quick. And so there was that. Fast forward 20-something years. Here I am. And I was sitting there writing a bucket list one day, and I had this character. I've carried him around. I've drawn him, carried him around my head for 35 years almost. And I decided that it was time for, as a bucket list, I was like, I really want to make this a real comic. I've made ash cans and I've made Xerox books and stuff like that. I want to make a real comic. So it was part of a bucket list, and that was like 2 years ago. Started an Instagram, started doing it, and here we are. So.
That's amazing.
That was my journey. Yeah.
That is so cool. That's been the same character since high school. I mean,
at least since I think I started drawing them when I was like 10, really? 11, 12, somewhere around there. Yeah. His first iteration was in middle school. The very first time I drew him was middle school. And he's evolved, of course, just like everything does. And here we are. So next thing I know, I'm making a book. So a real book.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Kelvin on Instagram just asked, "Are we allowed to ask questions later?" Kelvin, you can ask questions whenever you want, and I'll try to pop them up as you get them. In fact, I'm going to pop that up in the comment section of all the other places too. But while I do that, tell us, always a fan of comics? Then, I mean, you mentioned Super Friends, you mentioned Spider-Man.
What actually got me drawing was I actually had a Spider-Man coloring book that my mom had got me. I think I was probably 8 or 9, and it was Spider-Man versus the Green Goblin. I actually still have that book, and what I used for it was I started tracing the characters on it. It was all Romita art and John Romita art, so I was tracing the characters.
The good John Romita, not his son.
No. And that's how I learned a lot of. Early on from tracing, that's how I got drawing. I would trace the character, and then I would try to do it on my own. I would copy what I did. And so I learned very rudimentary anatomy that way. But that's how I started. And I love comics.
It's so funny how many people that's a common artist thing that I hear that I never would have thought of tracing to learn how to do. And I wish I had done that when I was younger. Because
I literally thought I was the only one until I've talked to other peers in the group. Like, no, that's how I started. I'm like, are you kidding me? I was like, cool. I had no idea.
Couldn't even go 5 minutes without killing JR. No, Brian, we cannot.
Brian.
We were going to actually have John Romita Jr. on the show one time, but it turns out he doesn't have a computer, so we just forgot about him.
What's up, Brian?
Yeah. So fan of comics, you remember your first comic, which is amazing. I always love hearing different people's comics. It's always so wide and varied, but they all brought us into this realm together.
Yeah.
And so you are now an official comic book creator yourself, because
I am. Yeah.
The Convictor Hunter's Moon had a successful Kickstarter. I would say very successful Kickstarter.
It went way better than my expectations. I knew we had a great fan base. I didn't think we had like it would be lightning in a bottle like that, and it blew us away on the team for sure. So
it's awesome. So break down the Convictor for us.
Right.
What can you tell us so far? Maybe tell us some of the origin stories from back in the day. So just tell us all things Convictor.
All right. Okay. Basically, the Convictor started for me was when I was like I said, I was in middle school. I saw the Punisher, and of course, who didn't like the Punisher? His Punisher was on a Spider-Man comic, and there was all that. Right. And he had his own books coming out in the 80s. And so I saw him like, wow, this guy's really cool. He's like, he's a vigilante, and he's just got this really strict sense of justice. And so I was like, all right, cool. So I drew a character initially, and I said, I'm going to put the skull on his face. So I did that, and it was just, he looked like every other guy with a skull on his face, like Crossbones or whoever from Marvel. Right. And then what ended up happening was I was also a massive fan of Eastman and Lard's Ninja Turtles. Like, I loved Ninja Turtles. Like, that was my jam. Between that and my obsession with G.I. Joe at that time really formed the Convictor. Because I said, okay, he has a vigilante like the Punisher, but what if he was a ninja? So then we made him a ninja. I said, then what if he also was very skilled like Daredevil? Because I like Daredevil as well.
Me too.
Yeah. So it was a hodgepodge. And then of course, he's like Convictor has the bandolier. That literally came from G.I. Joe. Like, there is a character in G.I. Joe called, I'm sure everyone knows, Firefly. Mm-hmm. Firefly, he was one of my all-time favorites, and still is, actually. So he had this cool bandolier. I'm like, you know what? My guy's gonna have a bandolier. So that's where the bandolier came from. It's pretty iconic now for my character. His initial iteration was that, and then so I drew him pretty much as a vigilante type early on. He was battling thugs and criminals and all this kind of stuff. But then I came across some really influential art. Like Michael Gilbert had Mr. Monster comics. I don't know if you ever seen any of Doc Stern, Mr. Monster. Doc Stern is like, he's this big hulking, he's like a Punisher type, but he fights just supernatural monsters. And he's half vampire himself, so he comes from this long line of these monster hunters. And I was like, man, that guy's cool. So that steered my art more into a supernatural apocalypse, if the bad things could happen, they happen. So that's kind of where we went with that. And the Convictor kind of went into that genre. He was still very much taking on thugs and criminals, but then he kind of was battling your, zombies and the occasional, wraiths and, all this kind of weird stuff. And then from there, I came across, at one point in my career, Tom Vigil's Faust comic. Mm-hmm. But if you've seen any of the Faust stuff, that is ultra violent. Mm-hmm. I was thank God I was a little older teen at that point. So I'm like, wow, like, look at this book. Like, that was like, that just blew my mind. I'm like, oh, I think the Convictor needs to be ultra violent now. So we were doing that for a while. So all those things formed kind of where he is today. And so about the character, he's a former military. Former special operations for the United States Army. He was, before that, grew up an orphan. He was raised within the system of Gut City, so he never knew who his parents were. So once he was 18, he was out of the system. He joined the military, went to the military. One thing about the Convictor I can tell you, I'm sure most folks that have tuned in or anyone that's even slightly familiar with the character, he has a a superhuman trait per se. Like he was born with the ability to have like a never say die attitude. He has what we call indomitable will. His will is like almost insurmountable. And it made, and because he survived a lot early on, not having family, stuff like that. So he joined the military. Having this trait, we don't know where this trait comes. I mean, I know where it comes from, but we right now early on we don't know. So he was bestowed upon this. He has it, and it made him a fantastic soldier. He excelled well in the military, so much so he was giving a prototype battle suit that a nanite, one of a kind, to test. Long story short, an operation goes bad in Afghanistan, and his team is killed. He is almost killed, but he is rescued by presumed dead by the military, but rescued by a ninja clan who had been operating on the China-Afghanistan border. So he was trained by them. He was rehabilitated, trained. Man became a ninja. The military thought he was dead. He's like, okay, man, and he really gravitated toward this group of individuals. He found a father figure. With one of the masters of the clan. He found love with one of the other female ninja there, so he got married. He had all this. He really felt he belonged there. He didn't care about anything else. He felt finally he was there. Long story short, that all fell apart. Another ninja clan came, a rival clan, killed everyone except him. So Convictor puts himself into a ritual that he didn't know a whole lot about, a supernatural ritual that puts you in a particular mindset. He did this, and this amplified his will, his indomitable will, to superhuman levels. And so he goes off to seek revenge with his military battle suit. And here we are. He gets his revenge, and then he goes back to Gut City, the most wicked place he knows, to continue his mission of retribution against the wicked. That is a long elevator pitch.
That's an amazing journey that he's been on. That you've been on with him. I love it. Kelvin on Instagram says, Jason, did you ever feel like giving up at any time? So this was a 35-year journey, I think you said, for you. So surely there were times. Absolutely.
That's actually a fantastic question. What ended up happening was, I raised kids. I had a career, like most of us. And then, so my art took a back seat. I mean, I still drew. I mean, I ran a martial arts school part-time. So I still drew all the logos, and I was still into graphic design. I still did all that. But yeah, I mean, other than my stories, because I have, the Convictor is something I talk about now. My universe is large. I mean, I've created a couple hundred characters since I was a kid. And so I break it down into microcosms. I have the Convictor verse, which is like the Convictor in his little small bubble of my larger, Pharo verse, if you will, larger world. And so I had all these characters, and I wasn't doing them justice. But the Convictor has always been my flagship character. He's always been the one that I felt deserved something. And yeah, I did. I did feel like quitting. And it was actually my son Zach. A badass in his own right, my kid, who was former military, former infantry. But he said, Dad, you really need to make this a comic. You really need to do it. And so I decided to do it. And then even now doing this before the Kickstarter, there are times, as an artist, you get frustrated. Especially now, I took a 20-year break. So for me, I had to relearn a lot of things. A couple things happened during that 20-year break. There was a giant boom in digital art, and I'm a traditional artist. Everything I did was traditional. So there was that. That was a learning curve and a half. And I kind of do both. Not very, I'm way better traditionally, but I missed a lot of things. I had to relearn anatomy. I had to relearn, perspective and back, how to really so I had to do that. And that makes you want to quit, because it's almost like you're learning all over. And the one thing I found out is that my drawing, at least as an artist, those skills are definitely perishable, without a doubt. That 20 years hurt me. I often think where I would be if I kept drawing for 20 years. But so here I am. So I had to relearn some things. So it was daunting, but I'm here. I made it. I'm still going. I'm still learning. So
it's amazing. That's so cool.
Thanks.
So let's talk Hunter's Moon specifically, the Kickstarter you just finished. What does that story revolve around without giving any spoilers? Just give us the low down on that for a minute.
Absolutely. All right. Well, Hunter's Moon was something I was working on a Convictor book called Resurgence. That book is basically, I spoke before about these ash cans and these Xerox books I would make and give them out to friends and all that stuff in high school. So I took a bunch of those stories and I combined them into one new story that was going to be Resurgence. Resurgence was going to come out. It was going to be very much a 90s tale because I did those comics in the 90s. So I was going to bring the Convictor to the forefront with that. That was going to be the original book. One of our Convictor Crossfire streams that we do, we got to talk and we had this fun poll we put up about would be cool if he fought like a classic movie monster. Like we were just like, it was just literally just something for fun. And I put it up and that poll got destroyed. Like I had no idea. Because I mean, the algorithm probably went nuts on Instagram because the engagement I had on that was crazy. And like people really, so I had Frankenstein, I had Dracula, I had, the Wolfman, I had, just the Mummy, just the classic monsters. It went crazy. The Wolfman swamped it. He literally swamped it. It was close. Dracula was leading for a long point, but the Wolfman, people came in at the end and just swamped it. And so I was like, wow. I said, all right, we'll make it a mini comic. It was fun. Whatever.
Yeah.
And it was really just going to be like, I always tell everybody, if you're watching any of these Bat in the Sun indie films where they have like Batman versus Deadpool or whatever, it's very much low context. It's like Batman's here, Deadpool's here, they're going to fight. So that's originally how we were going to do this book. I was like, all right, I'm just going to make it like, boom, Dracula's mad. The Convictor exists because they fear something more than Dracula. So Dracula sends the Wolfman to go do his business. That was original. But then the more we talked about it, I wrote an outline. And the more we talked about it on our stream, it just grew. It became something more. It kind of took a life on its own. It really did. And it just became large. And so here we are. We just said, let's make it a real book. And it really got a cult following, if for lack of a better term. It really got a lot of, I have amazing followers and they really got behind it. So we brought a team on. I got Nick Lee, who's doing our colors, and I got Dennis Valencia, who did our covers. And we brought them on. And it became cool. So Hunter's Moon is basically the gist of it without spoilers. It is basically, like I said, Dracula is not pleased that there is another person out there going bump in the night. That there's another person out there that, because Dracula, at least our Dracula, controls the creatures of the night. Like that is, basically in line with his overall character. So he controls, but he doesn't control the Convictor. And he is not pleased, and he wants to control the Convictor. He wants that, or he wants his body for study, because he's well aware Convictor has supernatural abilities. So there is, in my universe, other supernatural beings can read they're aware of each other.
Okay.
Yeah. So Dracula's very aware that there's a guy out there hunting the wicked and all this stuff, and that people fear him. So Dracula sends the Wolfman. He compels the Wolfman to go and do his bidding. And the Wolfman, can tell you this without being a sport, he's a little unwitting slave to this whole thing. Our Wolfman is a little bit more of a sympathetic character. So he goes to do Dracula's bidding. Dracula uses his magic and transports Wolfman to Gut City, and the Wolfman must confront the Convictor. So it's,
I love it.
Yeah, it's intense. It goes from 0 to 60 pretty quick.
Yeah, I can't wait to get my copy from the Kickstarter rewards.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Looking forward to it. So how is production on the comic coming along?
Going pretty well. I am, like I said, Dennis Valencia slayed the covers. I mean, he literally that guy's a machine. I couldn't ask for a better person to be a part of the crew. He slayed it, and he slayed all of our promotional posters. He really nailed all that stuff. And me, I've been doing the the art. I'm drawing it traditionally. I'm drawing it, inking it, and then sending it out to Nick, who's doing the colors. So it's going pretty well. It's very, most people don't know me, but if you do know me, if you've seen any of my art, like I tend to get a little nuts with detailing. Like McFarlane was a huge impression on me much later into my drawing. So I get crazy. Like I love details. I love things that no one wouldn't see unless they read the book 17 times. Like that's me. Okay. So I do spend. So traditionally, as an artist, I do spend a lot of time on my pencils. But yeah, production is going well. We're still on track. We're just plugging along. We have a pretty well-oiled machine right now between what we're doing. When it gets done by me, it gets inked, gets sent out colored, comes back, gets lettered, so that's where we're at. But I have my buddy Chris Michaels is from Homebrewed. He's doing our lettering for us. Him and I are both doing, he's helping me. So, he's helped me through it because it's one of those things where, I'm still learning. So I didn't want to do it all.
I'm going to come back to Homebrewed a little bit later because there's my opinion on a question I'm going to ask you.
Okay.
That remind me.
Mm-hmm.
So, Hunter's Moon was your first Kickstarter, correct?
It was, yes.
So what did you learn from it? What advice would you give someone else who's getting ready to do their first Kickstarter?
Well, the one thing right off the bat, the very first thing that I learned is, for me, like, research was key. I did a lot of research about this, but I also listened to people who ran successful Kickstarters. I literally picked the brain of Brian Lambert, who's, I picked his brain. I picked the brain of Jesse Bear from Burlap Comics. I picked his brain, and I picked, Derek Allen from Concrete. I picked his brain. And these guys are, these guys have run, and they're peers of mine, and they're guys I really look up to. And so if they tell me it's one way, or maybe I should do it, I'm going to listen hard because, and so I did a lot of that. So I learned that my peers, that the indie community itself is, it's fantastic in the sense that those individuals are willing to help. Like there was no malice. Like they gave me fantastic advice I can honestly say clearly paid off. But I also learned that I have some amazing fanatical followers. Like I never in a million years thought that I knew we would fund I wasn't worried about that. I knew within 30 days we would fund. I didn't think I'd do it in 90 minutes. Like that blew my mind. Like I was actually, that day I launched, I was riding the dashboard of Kickstarter and I just watched it. It was like boom, 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 boom. I was like, it blew. I was so humbled and so full of adrenaline at the same moment. I didn't know what to do. I didn't know if it was crazy. And I found out that my followers, and I found out that the Convictor resonated with a lot of people, like that it was something that people really cared about, that they really wanted to see. And that it amazed me. So I learned my followers were some amazing, amazing folks. And I'm so blessed and feel very lucky to have them be with me on this journey. I love them all, and they know that. We affectionately call them convicts. They kind of name themselves.
I love that.
They named themselves on one of my crossfires, so they named that, and so it became convicts, and so we call them that. But the only that's all positive. The one negative thing I did learn, and this is I did learn that. Don't expect people that you supported to always support you in return. Unfortunately, whether that I saw that a couple times, and it's a little disheartening because these are people that may have asked for your help to promote, may have asked for your help to back, and then the unwritten rule I think in the community, at least I did it through my Kickstarter. If you backed me and you're running something, we back you, and I'll back you for the exact amount you did me. That is something that we did, and I know my guys in my team also. So you got 3 backings for but I found out that some folks, I don't know the reason behind it. I'm not going to pretend to know, but that happened, and it was a letdown from some people that I actually thought that I was pretty close with, but live and learn, right? So here we are.
Yep.
So just focus on the positive, and that's all I'm doing. So.
That's right. But that is a good reminder for people out there. Just don't expect people to back you back, even if you're the type of person that would. I like that. That's a good piece of advice, actually.
Yeah.
Dr. Valencia Designs.
That's Dennis. Yeah, Dennis. Yeah, that's my man.
Says, Jason's storytelling and paneling are fantastic. Trust me. So we do, Dennis.
Jason spends a lot of time driving himself nuts doing it. So because as most artists, I'm a perfectionist. I know I want to give people the Convictor, and I want to give everyone that backed 148 of us, the folks back. I want to give you your best experience. I don't want you to come away from my book and say, wow, he kind of just phoned that one in. Like, I literally spent yesterday, and I'm talking one panel. I literally spent, it was Friday, but I spent all day on that panel, reworking a panel, and it was simply just something small like a facial expression. Like, that stuff is so important to me because including Brett, you guys all supported something I was doing, not knowing a whole lot about the character, and certainly not knowing a whole lot about me, just trusting in the process of what I'm doing. And I can't let you down. And so I will make myself nuts if I have to and stay up late and all that good stuff. I still work a full-time job, work 12-hour days. You know what I mean? So yeah, but I'm going to give you guys the best I can.
I love that attitude, because a friend of mine and I were just talking about how sometimes, not all the time, but sometimes in the indie comic community, there's people putting out comics. Basically, it seems, I'm inferring here, but just try to get a movie deal. And for you to be putting all your love and effort into a comic book is amazing, and shows your passion and shows your heart.
Well, that's the thing with me. I want the Convictor to feel like a movie. That's my goal. Like, I don't care about anything else. Like, I'm not, we all have these fantasies that, oh man, be great as I'm there. But that's not my goal. My goal is to literally make this book that I would want to read, and then it would make all my backers want to read. So.
Mm-hmm. Brian, good old Brian says, Convictor versus Snake Eyes, who wins?
Well, I will. That's gonna be hard because that's a rough one for me. But I'm gonna have to lean. I'm gonna have to lean on my guy. The only reason why I say this is, at the end of the day, the Convictor, he may not be superhuman per se, but he does have that trait. It's hard to keep him down. You'll find out in Hunter's Moon just how really hard it is to keep him down. I will tell you, there's a very pivotal point in our book where, and if you guys haven't seen the promotional, our Wolfman is every bit of like 6'6" and 450 pounds. He's massive. We did that on purpose because the Convictor is such a formidable opponent that has so many, weapons and this stuff. And our Wolfman literally has claws and teeth, which, don't get me wrong, is very formidable, but in his own right. But we wanted to give him a much larger feel, and we want him to dwarf our Convictor. So there's a point in the book where you will get the sense that the Convictor is hard to keep down, and that's, so I think that's his edge over Snake Eyes. But who knows? I love Snake Eyes. If Snake Eyes won, I ain't gonna be mad. So.
Speaking of verses, now I'm not going to give anything away because we're going to reveal this week, but the Convictor and Caliburn from Wingless Comics had an indie comic throwdown via the Indie Comic Dispatch, and so people came out, they voted. We had over 150 votes to tally up who would be the winner, and I'm not going to give any spoilers, but you know who won. Brian knows who won, and we're going to be revealing that this week. And
that was
if
fun.
You're out there watching, that was fun, and I can't wait. I think we have another good match. November, but
I'm telling you right now, you need to keep doing that. That was really a blast, and I remember those from Wizard magazine. That was one of my favorite parts. That was, I have such fond memories of that book, that magazine in general. I still have tons of them actually saved. But
I love that. I was thinking about this the other day about how I really liked this, and a feature I had forgotten about while kind of going back and researching the Wizards verses that they would do or Last Man Standing is what they called it. Was the make your own action figures. Do you remember that?
Yes, I do.
Love that feature.
Yeah, that feature was good. And what was the other thing? They always had the Mego dolls that would do. It was almost like Robot Chicken. They did that in the back. That was another thing I loved extensively in that magazine.
Me too. All right. So, what's next for the Convictor after Hunter's Moon? Is there another issue planned? Are you too deep in Hunter's Moon right now to even think beyond it?
Well, we did think beyond it a little bit. It was one of these things. I put up a character. I drew an old character of mine, just took him out of the vault one day. I was looking for a warm-up because I like to warm up before I draw, and so I was like, this guy called Hellwolf, right? So I drew up Hellwolf. He's an Australian mercenary. I redraw them, brought them to the 2020, and I put him up there, and man, he blew up. Like I said, my fans, the followers for the Convictor are just, they're the best, man. They like just, if I put him up and he just exploded, like people just really wanted to know more about him and all this stuff. And so I was like, wow, he was usually just a one-off character in my books. Like if you had someone to move arms, he worked for an evil corporation, the Osiris Corporation. So if you need someone that wanted to move technology or arms, he's the guy that would always be in that panel even when I drew as a kid. So now I was like, wow, he's really popular. People are like, we want to know more. Tell us more. So I devoted a whole live stream to him. We talked about him, and people got more into him. I was like, all right. So I put him in Hunter's Moon. I put him in there because it was fan service. They liked him, and I wanted to, why not? And he fit in perfect. He fit in pretty seamlessly for what we were doing. So I put him on there, and hell yeah. Thanks, Sleek. That's Sleek. Yeah, he's a good dude. Hellwolf got popular, so we put him in there. So now, so popular that one of our stretch goals for Hunter's Moon was a Hellwolf epilogue at the end, and they just smashed right through that stretch goal. So that happened. Dennis Valencia did that. He drew that. It was his very first sequential art. So he's usually a cover artist, but I pressed him to do sequential because I know he can do it, and he killed it. So that's going to be great in the back of the Hunter's Moon. So Hellwolf is we're doing a little mini comic, one shot. After because we overfunded so well on so then it gives us, we're putting it right back into production of other books, and Hellwolf is going to be our next book. That's going to be a mini comic. It's no Convictor, related to Convictorverse obviously, but it's about Hellwolf going on a mission for the corporation he works for, and it's something that ties into our overall 13 book story arc with these. So we don't really use them as issues. I treat them kind of like James Bond movies. Like that's why you notice it's like the Convictor, blah 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 blah. So we don't do issues per se. So they're all related.
You alluded to that, or maybe flat out said that in the print interview that's on the website, and I love that take. Actually, it's a really unique take and doesn't tie you to a release schedule or anything like that.
And well, the reason why we did that, I also cut my teeth early on my writing style from books that used to be out in the 80s and 70s and 80s called The Executioner from Don Pendleton. The Executioner is actually the basis of The Punisher. He was actually inspired the Punisher. So we did that, and so that formed my writing style. So and their books were like that. It was like The Executioner, something. So I was like, man, that's really stuck in my craw all these years, 30 plus years later. And so that's how I did it. And I just think it's cool because like the Convictor's here and he's doing this, but it's kind of has some connective tissue, but it can also stand alone. So that's kind of what we do.
I got to give you a quick shout out because you just threw it out there, and I don't know that you realized it, but you can tell that you are an artist, and B, have done your studying for comic books, because you use the term sequential art, and I don't hear that enough. And I'm a geek about the details of comic books.
That's all right, man.
I love it. Thank you, Jason, for giving me a geek moment.
I'm doing my best, man. Thanks.
So let's talk other indie self-published comics. Who are you following? Who do you think other people should be following?
Well, I am a monumental fan of anything coming out of Wingless. Brian's a really good friend of mine, and he's always got my support. Concrete, this guy's a Concrete. I love literally everything that they're doing. The Odina books, like my little girl, that's like one of her favorite female superheroes right now. So she read that book she read that book like no one's business, man. She read it one sitting, never walked away from it. So Jesse Bear for Burlap Comics. Like Burlap is a very niche comic that it's like slasher horror, but it has some vigilante aspect. It's something different that isn't really existing right now inside of the indie comics. And if anyone's never checked out a Burlap book, you should. You'll be blown away by it. It's just unreal. New on the scene, Slate Comics. Jack Sloan and Nate Broughton, two Australian guys who are actually working on the Hellwolf book with me. Those guys, they just launched Slate Comics, their own comic universe, and they got some phenomenal things coming. Who else? Homebrewed comics, right? We talked about that. Definitely homebrewed. I'm a big fan of homebrewed stuff. I like I'm a massive fan of Caliber in those books. Caliber is pretty much, if you put a red mask, that's me. Like his personality and mine are just about in line with each other. Because the stuff that he says, I'm just like, oh my God, that I would say this. And so that's like, I'm really big on that right now. And any of the guys I said, like, those are the guys I really like. And I'm also liking stuff from like the Haunting comic. Like there's some really good stuff coming in out of there. You know, Falco's got some great stuff. Yeah, I mean, I'm a Kickstarter guy. I got a lot of awesome Kickstarter books. I have such a pile right now that I need to get through and read, but I'm so swamped with my own stuff. I can't read these phenomenal books that keep showing up at my doorstep. But
speaking of homebrewed comics, they said that they loved the Wizard fan casting. I want to do some indie comic fan casting eventually through Indie Comics Dispatch, just to cast a whole movie. You know, sometimes
that would be awesome.
People throw up just one character, but I want to do like the whole book and just I think that'd be hilarious.
That would be hilarious.
Pineland Family. I don't know if that's a. Tell me more about that, Misanthropic 666, because I don't know. If that's a publisher or a book, I'd love to know more. So, all right, let's talk, because I know Homebrewed Comics is watching right now. Let's talk. If you could do a indie comic crossover with anybody, who would it be? And I'm going to give you my answer first because you basically already said it. Caliber. I want to see the Convictor and Caliber from Homebrewed Comics.
It is absolutely in the works. It is something that we've been planning. We actually has its own name because we tentatively call it CNC Murder Factory as a nod to the obviously the 90s band CNC Music Factory. We just thought it was funny. This book that we're talking about, there's been some promotional art that we've actually tossed up too. I actually used the Get Hard poster. So from Nate from Broughton from Slate Comics made that for us. Convictor, for those that don't know, personality-wise, he is not a jokester like Caliber can be. Caliber is serious at times as well, but the Convictor is pretty much the straight man in this buddy cop film. It would be every bit a buddy cop comic, and the Convictor is the straight man to Caliber's antics, and we think that plays off of each other perfectly.
I am there for that. Like, that is amazing. You know, I said this in my review of Crit. I say Crit. I don't know. Is that how?
Yeah, it's Crit. Yeah, no, that's right. Yeah.
I wasn't sure if there was like CRIT. You know, some people.
Yeah, he says Crit. We just say Crit is short. Yeah, I think it's.
You know, I started reading that. Got probably about halfway through the book. I was like, you know, this is okay. This is an average team up comic. You know, like it's decent. And then, like I said in my review, everything fucking changes.
Me too. Like, that end was like no joke. Like you didn't see that coming. Yeah,
no, I know. It ends amazingly. It's just.
I said that to Chris. I never saw that coming. Especially when that's something you don't normally see. It's usually wraps up in a nice little bow at the end, and you don't see that. No, nope.
Especially in the indie comic scene right now, I feel like a lot of times it wraps up easy and neat, and it's kind of predictable because people don't know if they're going to get another issue funded. You know, they don't know if they're going to get the first issue funded, so the first issue is kind of wrapped up nice and neat. But God, that was a good one. Way to go, Homebrew.
It was fantastic. Yeah, so we're definitely working something with him. We also got another one planned with actually Burlap. Cool. We got a big one planned with Burlap. That's looking to be a 3-issue mini series, possibly. That's in the plans too. Because unlike Caliber, Burlap and the Convictor are very much the same, cut from the same cloth. They're very serious. They don't say a lot. You know, it's all about the mission. It's all about, you know, whatever you're doing. So you have Caliber who comes into, and Caliber is just like, hey, you know, he's the guy that would fart in the room and then punch you in the shoulder. Like, do you smell it yet? Do you smell it? Do you smell it? Like, that's totally him. And I think that plays off phenomenally well against the Convictor because he is, like I said, he is absolutely. He doesn't, you know, he's just, you know, he's just so uptight. So, anal retentive is probably the best term that would describe the Convictor. It's all mission, tunnel vision, mission first. So
I love that. Yeah, that's going to be fantastic to watch that or to read that.
Yeah, it's going to be a go. We have a lot of fun stuff planned for that.
So what's one piece of advice that you would give a new indie creator? You know, I think you and Paul Richards, I don't know if you know Paul Richards from Black Moss Comics. You guys kind of similar origin story where 2020 came and you guys just decided you were doing it. And I love that. So there's other people out there who are sitting there thinking, maybe I should do it.
Right.
What?
Yeah. Well, sorry, I'm sorry to cut you off. For me, one thing I can give advice is, I said it earlier, you make something that you'd want to read. Because draw something that you'd want to, draw for yourself. Always draw for yourself. Always create for yourself. I mean, create for others secondly, because it's your passion that's going to sell your project. And I can honestly say firsthand, it was my passion. And this is verbatim from other folks. This isn't me saying it. Like, I've told numerous times that it was my passion. Even Derek from Concrete called me up after the Kickstarter successfully funded in that 90-minute window. He called me up and he goes, I just want to say, he's like, it's your passion that sold this book. He's like, I'm telling you right now. He's like, people care about your character because you care. He's like, you're out there every day talking about it. You give away details. You talk about them all the time. You interact with people. And he says, it's your passion. And I am passionate and about my stuff. And I believe if you're passionate about it, it bleeds through to your followers, your backers, the people that are buying your book, the people that frequent your Instagram, your Facebook, or whatever, just the people you interact with. And I think you have to believe in your product before you can expect anyone else to believe in it. And that is something I believe that wholeheartedly. So. And
that 100% comes through too, man, in everything you do.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Passionate about what you do. So just to go back a minute, Steve Kennedy said, I had a geekgasm when I saw the burlap Convictor art that Jason showed me.
Oh yeah. Jesse was a big influence on helping with my Kickstarter, and we were fast friends. I mean, I became friends with him through his Kickstarter. I think it ran in March, right in the middle of COVID, the pandemic, and so Kickstarters weren't really. It was a bad time, and they didn't recover until June, I think. Really, but yeah, we became really fast friends, and he became really someone that gave me a lot of mentorship. But then we started talking about our characters, and he's just as passionate. He is so super passionate about burlap and I call him Burlap, even though burlap's technically not his name; it's the name of the book. But we'll call him Drayton. His name's Drayton too. But yeah, we just talked, and as we realized there's so many similarities between his character and my character that we said, hey, what do you think that they would meet? Like, there's so many parallels within, and Jesse's like, yeah. He goes, I absolutely think that they would exist somehow in each other's, not in the larger world, but just in each other's. They would cross paths without doubt. So that's where I drew him a fan art of the Convictor and burlap, and it was something that took me like months to do because I went detail nuts on it, which I tend to do. It's like but it was a gift and I wanted them to have it. But yeah, so Steve, some of these guys, I put it up on the Instagram and it was popular.
On Instagram, people are saying Burlap is one of the best series I've read in a while. Burlap is a brilliant comic, so good. So yeah, I've not read it, so I need to.
You got to do it, Brett. You got to do it. You got to pick it up. You get through. Covenant Comics has it, and they the publisher, definitely get it through them because it is if you liked what you saw at the end of Homebrewed, that. So I'm going to tell you, Burlap is that like start to finish, like steps on the gas and does not release that pedal at all through the entire series. Like it is crazy and it is super deep. It has so much great minutia in it, and yeah.
I'm gonna have to get it. Misanthropic 666 said, Pineland County Fair coming up. Make a monster, tell a tale, bring a head in a bucket.
Yeah. They're Pineland County is stuff. Uhari Comics. It was Low Daniels was a Kickstarter, and Pineland County is where the Low Daniels frequents, and so it's kind of like they're creating a. They're creating a small microverse, if you will, for other characters to be involved in there and frequent, with complete creator control, of course. So I believe that's what 666 is talking about. He's a good dude. He's one of my frequent members of Crossfire, and he's a good guy. So
Nice. All right, Jason, where can people find your work? How can they support you? If they didn't back the Kickstarter, how can they get that book when it comes out?
Yep. All right. Well, right off the bat, we have a website that's you can either get us at convictorcomics.com or you can get us at pharoscreativestudios.com. Lands you on the same place. We're there. We have all our social buttons. We're on YouTube. We do a little YouTube live stream every couple weeks called the Phalanx, where we bring on a bunch of different indie creators, and we usually rotate in one or two different ones that are kind of outside the small little group that usually frequent, and we talk about different topics. So you can find us on YouTube, Pharo's Creative Studio. We actually have a Twitch channel. We got nothing up there yet. I think about doing indie comic reviews. I'm thinking about doing. I have so many comics. I'm like, I gotta do something. Maybe I'll do a Twitch thing with that. Yeah, but yeah, you can find us on Twitch. We're on Facebook, The Convictor. Convictor Comics on Facebook, Instagram, obviously, The Convictor, Pharo's Creative Studios. We're also on Instagram, and we're also on Facebook. And I have my personal art page, Jason Pharo Art. And as for the Hunter's Moon book, if you did not back it, send me a DM. I can get you one. All right. When it's time to fulfill, we're still taking, because we know circumstantial. I know things happen, and right. I get that. So if we want, we can definitely get you one. So just hit me with that DM, and we'll make it happen for you. So
that's great. That's awesome, guys. If you don't follow The Convictor, if you don't follow Jason Pharo, get on there to all those different platforms. Follow. We're going to have a reveal on IndieComicsDispatch.com this week with information on the Convictor versus Caliburn, and it's just such a fun time right now. I can't wait to read Hunter's Moon.
Thank you,
Jason. This has been great. Thank you so much for being here today. And we had a small glitch on the date. I totally thought we were scheduled for Sunday. And vacation time for this, y'all.
Yeah, I did. I really did. I was like, Brett, I'm no good for Sunday, so I can't help you.
So that was totally my fault, and I'm so glad that I was able to make it work today.
Awesome. Me too, buddy. Thank you. Thanks for having me. I was glad to be here.
No problem, guys. Tune in next this Wednesday. We're doing Werewolf Night on Broadcast from the Dispatch, and I just posted the November lineup for all the different shows in November. It's going to be a fun time. Jason, thank you again.
No problem. Thanks. Take care.
All right.